I wanted to get to know a little bit more about Ireland because I mentioned to you before we started that I really don't know much about Ireland. I think that it's quite silly because in like I really love history, but in our history classes at school, they never taught us anything about Ireland or Irish history.
No.
Could you? So I know that Ireland's now split up. You've got Northern Ireland and just Ireland. Can
Yeah.
you tell me a bit about like why that is and perhaps some of the
Yeah.
history?
So obviously it was all under like British colonial rule and part of the British Empire for a very long period, something like 700 or 800 years. And then there were some movements in, well, I think it was in the 1840s there was the Irish potato famine. So the way of life for Irish people at that time was probably similar to the way of life for like a lot of English, British people that I've kind of realised since I came here, because it's the other way. In Ireland, we're taught so much Irish history, and um, there's a perspective on it that doesn't really. It was a surprise to me to learn a bit more when I came here about how like people used to live in those years in England. It's like, oh well, they were all like poor and oppressed too. Kind of sometimes the narrative with Irish history can leave you thinking that yeah, like the British oppressed the Irish and we were impoverished and suffering or whatever. But the exact same thing was true of like the tenant farmers in throughout Britain and of the working class and stuff. They were living in really awful conditions. So the way of life for people in Ireland was kind of similar. There was a lot of poor tenant farmers who like didn't own the land they farmed, and they paid rent to the lord who owned it and everything like that. And when the primary crop was potatoes, and when a disease called potato blight like affected that and meant that people were just starving to death and in poverty, some lords stepped up and took good care of their tenants, and others just like still demanded the rents off them or evicted them or whatever. So there was a huge wave of immigration out of Ireland, obviously, and a huge number of deaths. And I don't know whether that's where it started, the kind of movement of we should be independent, kind of a revolution in a way. I'm sure that fueled it if it didn't start it.